Deep down inside that God designed men to procreate, protect, and provide for their children. And I was a part of doing the exact opposite. And Satan had convinced me, and we all know that Satan is the father of lies. Satan had convinced me that if anyone ever found out about what I had done in my past, and as a Christian at that my life as I knew it was over. I mean, who's going to come to me for Christian counseling? And I was doing a very popular morning drive show for a top Christian station in the country, and Satan told me, boy, they're going to kick you out before the microphone even goes off. And you know what? Your friends and family and radio fans, they're going to think you're the scum of the earth. You might as well just leave the country. That's why I kept it a secret for 18 years. But over the years, I was somehow able to compartmentalize my lost children and the abortions and just kind of tuck them way back in my head somewhere where I didn't really think about it too much. But as time went on and my life circumstances changed, the lid to my Pandora's box of hidden darkness became unhinged. And things started to slowly leak out. Well, call it life's irony or God's divine intervention. The good news, folks, is I repented of my sins. Oh yeah, the prodigal son came home, and the father was running towards me. I repented of my sins, and I led an unwed mother to the Lord. That's awesome. I was in grad school, and I led this unwed mother to the Lord, and I told Jeannie that I'd marry her and adopt her little girl, Ricky, then 4, as my daughter, on the condition that I'd have a vasectomy before the wedding, and that we would never have children together. Well, although she had dreams of one day having more babies, Jeannie loved me enough to accept my selfish and drastic decision. And 2 months before our wedding, I went to the doctor, and I had a vasectomy after 4 abortions. I think that's what they call shutting the barn door after the horses have gotten out. Well, years went by, and through being a daddy to Ricky and experiencing the many blessings of fatherhood, God changed my heart about never wanting children. And I went back to the doctor who performed the vasectomy for a reversal. And guess what? It didn't work. I was freaking out. I thought that I'd squandered any chance of having my own children. But a year later, my wife and I went to the Cleveland Clinic for a second opinion and a second reversal. Now, men, let me share something with you. If you've ever had a vasectomy or plan on having a vasectomy, you might need to buy a couple bags of frozen corn. You know what I'm saying? You go in for a reversal, you better buy some stock in Bird's Eye frozen foods. That's a different ballgame, folks. That's a different ballgame. You know what? Praise God. That surgery was a success. And within a couple of months, my wife was pregnant. And at the 3-month mark, I was doing my radio show in the morning. I called up my wife live. She was at home, and she announced to about 30,000, 40,000 listeners that we were going to have a baby, and it was exciting. And a couple days later, she called me. I was at the radio station. I was at doing the show, and she said, "Mark, I think I'm losing the baby." I rushed home. I got her in the car, took her to the doctors, and she had a miscarriage. I'll never forget that day. It might have been one of the creepiest, saddest days of my entire life. And the sky was overcast because it's dreary. It's always overcast. And it was raining, and the windshield wipers were going back and forth, and we just lost our baby. I'm just looking straight ahead. I'm numb. And out of the blue, my wife says, "Mark, how could anyone ever do that?" I'm like, "How could anyone ever do what?" And she said, "How could anyone ever have an abortion?" Because basically, that's kind of what just happened to me. I was stunned. I was totally silent. I had no response for her. I turned my eyes back on the road, and I thought to myself, you know what I never wanted in the past, I now wanted and lost. And my wife has no idea that I've lost my first 5 children. And then my mind began to play tricks on me as I started to think that our miscarriage was God's way of paying me back. Oh yeah, God had it out for me. I know now He did. That's what I was thinking. And I began to wonder and worry, what if Jeannie never got pregnant again? Or what if she got pregnant again but had more miscarriages and I never got to have my own children? Well, just a couple of months later, though, on July 4th, we were at Hershey Park, and Jeannie told Ricky and I that she was pregnant again. And while that was certainly joyous news, with a recent miscarriage fresh on my mind and in my heart, I wasn't getting my hopes up too high. I did a 40-day fast. Didn't eat a bite of food for 40 days, and I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed some more for a healthy baby. But at the same time, I continued to have these overwhelming feelings of impending doom, that God was going to pull the rug out right from underneath me one more time and take my next child. I'll never forget the day. I had a little girl. Her name is Faith Madison. That day was one of the greatest days of my life. But with that being said, for each joyous emotion that would come to my heart, an equally haunting thought would come to my mind. I have a beautiful baby. I have 5 dead babies. I am a part of a brand new child that was born. I am a part of 5 unknown children who were not given the opportunity to experience life. 2.5 years later, at the age of 44, my son Ross, and these terrible feelings were like a tsunami flooding over me. I started having panic attacks. Never had a panic attack before. I'm sure there are people in here who've had them. You know what they're like. It's not pleasant. I would finish up some counseling sessions sometimes. I'd shut my office door, put the chair against the doorknob, turn off the light, get on my knees and pray out to God and weep. What have I done, God? What have I done? Now, to my clients, to my radio listeners, to my family and friends, I appeared to have my act together. But that's the point. I was just acting. The real me was falling apart. I was an emotional train wreck. I was living a lie, and not a single person knew about my entire past. I remember years ago, I would be asked in the Erie community, "Hey Mark, will you MC our pregnancy center banquet? Will you MC the big pro-life get-together we're having?" And so I'd grab the microphone and I'd run up on the stage and I'd do some stand-up comedy and get people laughing. Then I'd introduce the keynote speaker. I'd sit back down at the table and I'd sit next to my wife. And she'd hold my hand, and oftentimes the speaker was a woman, and she'd talk about her abortion experiences. My wife would squeeze my hand and some tears were going down her cheeks. And I was sitting there going, God, I'd give anything if I could do what that person's doing. If I could get this secret out of my heart.